Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of the Metacast podcast. It's the podcast about itself, ourselves, and the self in general. My name is Ty. I will be your host this evening, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host Distance. He's that guy. Yeah, there you go. Right. Now that my camera's not mirrored, I'm really bad at pointing the correct direction for things. Fuck.
Oh, that's all good, man. I mean, no matter what side I'm on, I'm always by your side, buddy.
Oh, well, tonight we're actually doing something where we're not on each other's sides. Thank you for that amazing segue. That was not like planned, but
that was honestly God not rehearsed. We do it live.
We'll do it live.
Oh, dude, actually, have you seen, before we get into it, my new emotes are here. There is now an official Do It Live emote. Check chat.
Look at that.
Yeah, we've got new emotes.
I'm stoked.
But yeah, so yeah, we are doing something a little different tonight. Instead of just our normal discussion, this is going to be, I guess, more of a debate, right?
Yeah.
I mean, because more
even
often
though they're semi one and the same anyway. It's just there's opposition in a debate, I guess, maybe.
Well, exactly, yeah. And I guess, like, I mean, I don't know. A lot of people kind of view debates as, like, I think it's kind of silly, but it's like, who won? You know, so often when I see like the political debates and stuff, like, oh, who do you think won that debate? And it's like, well, you know,
like for political debates, there really is a winner, and there's, you know, essentially meaning who pleased the most people with what they said, whether or not it was the truth.
Yeah, and unfortunately now it's like, who had the best like soundbite moment, basically, right? Yeah. I don't know. That irritates me so much about like what the political discourse in this country has become. Is it's like it's not about what I would say, and I think you agree with. Is like the point of a debate is like two people exploring both sides of an argument, trying to find the like the truth, essentially, right? Versus like
that's how I would define an argument, but I think a debate sort of, at least when I think about it, a debate implies opposition, whereas an argument might imply opposition for me, but I think of it as like a philosophical practice of finding the truth, which, I mean, a debate could be the same thing.
Yeah.
It's just semantics, but I would say, yeah, for me, the point of each really is to find the truth, but we typically see debates as a team that's winning or losing at a you know, academic institution, or we see two political figures that are trying to win or whatever.
Well, and also it's like there's two meanings of argument, where you could have like two people in an argument, or you could have, you know, you're trying to construct an argument. There doesn't need to be a second party in that second definition, where it's just like, oh, here is my argument for something or against something, like.
True.
But with a debate, it's like, true. I think it always has to be between. You can't just like, oh, I'm gonna have a debate by myself. Like,
I mean, that's kind of what thinking is.
Yeah, true. That's a very good point. Yeah, as long as well, that's what good thinking is. I think there.
Yeah. True. there is bad thinking.
Yeah. But yeah. So go ahead. I guess then, what is the topic of tonight's debate? I think since you're kind of I guess like giving the positive, I guess, like maybe I want to hear your way of wording what your assertion is.
Okay, I'm essentially just gonna like read off of a thingy. Hope you don't mind.
Oh, of course.
What I mean by a thingy is a smartphone.
Did you come prepared? Jesus. Fuck. All right, I'm already gonna lose. Shit.
No, you're like, okay, yeah. All I can think of is the movie Pumping Iron. I don't know why. If he comes in shape, if he comes out of shape, yeah, whatever.
In the competition, I am his daddy. And it's when he comes to me for advices, it's easy for me to give him the wrong advices.
As you can see, we're both terrible at Arnold Schwarzenegger impressions. Yeah. Okay,
that was really bad.
So I'll just, because it's easier to just read what I sort of initially thought of as because I think this still works even based on sort of the crafting I've done over the last week or two. So my initial assertion is that I guess my opening statement, whatever you want to call it, is that eroding or completely giving up on all of the ideas pertaining to masculinity I took a word out from my original draft, so
Okay.
I'll just start again. This is so pathetic. Do it live. Eroding or completely giving up on all of the ideas pertaining to masculinity is detrimental to American society as a whole, as well as men, young men in particular. This perspective is strictly in support of the practical and functional use of masculine principles, and not any acts of misogyny or patriarchal social structure. Patriarchal social structure. Say it 5 times fast.
No.
As you can see, this is not a formal debate.
Okay, so I guess the crux of what I heard there is that we don't want to give up on the traditional ideas of masculinity. In your view, that would be harmful.
I took the word traditional out on purpose.
Okay, so just ideas
traditional masculinity is actually not necessarily what I mean, because traditional has a whole bunch of other terrible baggage attached to it.
Gotcha.
That just doesn't work really.
Okay. Well, I guess like we knew where this was going to go. Obviously we have to first start to agree on terms, right? So what is masculinity actually? I think that's where I would like to start. I think that would make the most sense.
Oh, okay. I was like, where do you mean? Where's it going to go? Oh, okay. Definitions. All right. Yes, we do. We do both know. I was like, good Lord, is there an unplanned destination for this? So, when I think of the terms, like, I think that oftentimes when you say masculinity, particularly to certain individuals, there's a lot of other things attached to it that aren't necessarily part of the word.
Okay.
So some people, and I've actually talked to several people. So if you want a diverse group of people to talk to the people you work with.
Yeah.
Because they come from everywhere. If I talk to my friends, then I'm generally talking to the same people. So I've kind of had conversations with a few people, and there's individuals that when you say masculinity, they think guys beating up women, essentially misogyny, which is another word. Misogyny doesn't have to be associated with males.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that there's a lot of occasions in which you say masculinity and people think traditional gender roles, and that's not necessarily true either. That's not really what the word's intended. Like, you could use it as males having a specific place, I guess, but that's also antiquated and doesn't work. There's no specific place for anybody, but there's places that are beneficial for people.
Okay.
Not to say that the places that are beneficial actually fit in any kind of cookie cutter type of idea. So my thoughts are, when I say masculinity, I mean just things that in the West are typically associated with males. And I find it kind of irritating when I talk to people and I say that and they act like they don't know what I mean when I'm saying it. But if you grew up in the West, then you understand without necessarily having a huge discussion about it, what someone means when they say it. But there's finer points that people might not be defining the same way. But I think that there's generally an understanding among Westerners when we say those things, like what it is exactly that we mean in our culture.
Okay. Well, for the sake of the discussion, what are those traits to you? Like what? Like, if you were to create a list of them, is it easy to list, or is it kind of more of an ethereal collection of ideas?
I would say that it's essentially the hero myth kind of narrative. Now, I'm not saying that in a lot of myths that the heroes don't do stupid shit like cheat on their partners and do sort of douchey things, but a lot of it is just the idea that it's an individual who is strong without being so insecure as to be overly aggressive to express that strength. And I don't just mean like able to bench press 350 pounds. I mean someone who's resilient in every way, and an individual who has a disdain toward injustice and will do whatever they can to stop it whenever they see it. Someone that doesn't turn their head, someone that doesn't cower when the worst thing happens on the worst day to the best people. Someone that's not willing to withdraw when they see injustice occur. And the distinction between males and females is, I acknowledge that there is a privilege to being male, and a lot of that is pretty clear. You can look at a male and tell. the major privilege that males have over women is the fact that, generally speaking, given the same stimulus, men will typically be larger and stronger than women in their given culture and their given gene pool.
Yeah.
So that's a privilege that men have over women that is abundantly clear. Any other things related to social structure and employment, we can talk about that stuff till we're blue in the face. But I think it's pretty clear that there is a privilege and strength and size advantage. But I think that someone who's truly masculine uses that privilege for the best thing possible in a situation in which it needs to be used. And I don't just mean in battle. I mean doing a job or a feat that requires a larger human or a stronger human. I think that having that privilege is one distinction. But like I said, this is completely barring the social side of it. This is completely like physical.
Yeah.
And obviously, everybody has a fair amount. Everybody has testosterone in their body, including women. But males, hormonally, we're different.
Yeah.
And hormones affect you in very particular ways. I just realized there's a piece of reference material I didn't pull up.
Oh shit! Well, yeah, pull that up. Well, I am interested in, I guess, to explore because all of the traits that you said, I would say, I mean, and even as you are explaining the traits, you were specifically saying a person that is that you never said a man that is or a male that is, because all of the traits that you said, I would argue, are just important traits for any adult. I don't necessarily believe that they're things that only a man should try to emulate.
Yeah, so I agree with your statement, but I differ from I estimate that I differ from your perspective in one specific way, that I think that generally speaking, because statistically there's always outliers, but generally speaking, I think that males are more content with their existence when they have those traits. Whereas while the majority, and I'm talking United States in particular, where we live, because it's the only thing that's relevant, I think, to our conversation is where we live. That those are good traits for everyone to have. You want someone that's resilient, but some people are better suited for that. It doesn't make sense for a small individual who's not particularly strong to run toward danger, especially when that person is of utmost importance in the survival of our species. That we should not sacrifice someone as important as a woman ever. It's not because they're less or because they're weak. It's because they mean more. They're much more important when you look at survival of the human race.
Yeah, just as far as like in a reproductive sense.
Yeah, and I don't mean to be like like perverse or whatever, but I mean, you could take a village of people and repopulate it with like 3 or 4 guys.
Yeah.
And because males are essentially fertile all the time, and
with the gestation factor, women, and it's like when one woman gets pregnant, she's kind of out of the reproductive pool for 9 months effectively. A guy is constantly there.
Yeah. And for at least the I don't know for sure, but I'll just estimate maybe the 3rd trimester, or maybe the very end of the 3rd trimester, that woman will also be out of commission, so to speak, for many other tasks. Not necessarily because she's incapable of doing it or shouldn't be, but mainly just for concern of the child, because you especially don't want someone who has another human in them to be in a dangerous situation or to do anything that could cause harm to them and also the additional human.
Yeah, true.
So a lot of it is that I think that there are many females that would be content not having some of those traits, even though that's good for them. It's good for everyone. I think there's a distinct thing among males that helps the existential crisis of what am I for? If you have those traits, actually the traits so here, a lot of it, when I go to the existential side of it, I mean that if you look at it, most males want a battle to fight, an adventure to live, or a beauty to pursue. And that beauty doesn't necessarily have to be a woman. It can be, but it doesn't have to be. And I think that those are the main things that are really required to help. But like I said, women also, but a male in particular, to have a content life. And for me, it's not necessarily saying that that society would be better off. In some ways, maybe a little bit, if we encourage these traits in males in particular. But it's also the individual, the young man that we're talking about, whoever that person may be.
Okay. But does the so the characteristic then of considering these traits, I don't want it to be about semantics too much, but it's like using the word masculine or masculinity to be an umbrella for these traits. Not only does it, in my mind, it kind of likens it to the male sex or gender rather than it being, like we're saying, positive for both, but it also tends to almost be exclusionary, to where if you're a male that doesn't necessarily exhibit or relate to a lot of these traits, are you not as much of a man, basically? And it's like, I feel like that can sometimes be detrimental to someone's identity if they don't exemplify what most people's idea of masculinity is.
Yeah, and I understand where you're coming from. I think that's that the perspective that you're describing is not it's not really beneficial to say that someone's less of a man. I think you agree with me.
Yeah.
But I would say that an individual that possesses those traits who's male will probably be more content with their existence.
Well, that's tough to say, because everyone's different, right? Like, I don't know if that'd be, because I'm sure there's plenty of people that would be content with their existence without, identifying with, like you said, like only, running towards danger even, there's like, I don't know. I feel like that's a tough argument to make when people are so insanely different.
Yeah, I realized I didn't do your what's when someone says masculine, like how is it that you would define that?
Well, I guess we agree on a lot of the terms, or a lot of the traits, I guess. And I think, like, even when we spoke about it before, it's kind of like we both kind of, it's like the traits you look for in a responsible adult. Just like taking responsibility for yourself and your actions, standing up for yourself and others that may need it, just being an upright person. A lot of that to me is the exact same as masculinity. And I think that's kind of one of the issues that I have with it. It's like, it's the same issue, even though I understand it more, it's the same issue that I have with calling feminism. The fact that it's like, what feminism should be is about the equality of the sexes or the genders. And the fact that it's named after just one of the sexes or the genders is kind of strange to me, which is like, that's the same feeling I have with masculinity. It's like, so many of these terms, like we're saying, are beneficial for anyone. So why it's like specifically grouped to one sex or one gender seems to be, in my mind, almost just a carryover from our past where only men mattered. And it's like at this point where, we're kind of new into this world where women actually have their own voice and they count as people. In our country, women have been able to vote for not even 100 years at this point, right? So it's like that's a very new idea that women are actually supposed to be equal, or at least like they are their own people, rather than just being something that came along with a man. So it's like, I'm wondering if that almost like the using the word, is that a carryover of this history where it's only men that mattered and only men needed to have these traits?
What is it that makes you think that that's possibly a carryover from that period of time? Because the word feminine existed then too.
Well, yeah, but I guess that's where I was going to go, is like, well, what traits are femininity, or what traits would fall under the umbrella of feminine? Because it's like, when I try to list those traits off, they're not they're not things that I would think are, well, I guess like compassion, right? Would you consider compassion to be feminine?
I would consider compassion to be human.
Well, same, but I mean, I would consider, you know, being strong without being insecure to be human. You know, so it's like that, and to me is the same, like the same idea that it's like, well, even with the traits that are feminine or fall under the blanket of femininity, a lot of those are even just things that um, should be beneficial for anyone, really.
Yeah, and well, I mean, to use the terms doesn't mean that each individual of each specific biological sex has to be nothing but those traits.
Yeah, no, I definitely, yeah,
So it's the idea that for one, the traits seem to be a little more relevant or a little more important to them,
hmm.
or a little more common, or even a lot more common, or a lot more beneficial. Um, you know, and if you look at the types of professions that people end up in, you can see that the majority of, because I would say for me, a distinctly feminine trait would be nurturing.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean that a male can't be that. I mean, one of my favorite scenes in any documentary, I think it's is it Matt Fraser, the the CrossFit guy?
Oh, yeah. I think that's his name.
So he's like huge, like enormous, has like these huge broad shoulders, and like he's just built, and he's a, oh no, it's not Matt Fraser. Who's the other guy?
But
Ah, shoot.
Matt Fraser is
He
one
was
of the
like,
CrossFit guys, though, right?
he's one of them, but there's
Okay.
another person who, Froning, that's his name. His name is Froning. I think
Okay.
it's Rich Froning. Silly me.
Okay.
Sorry, Rich Froning is just a really large, like very powerful, built person that's won several of the CrossFit games.
Okay.
And there's a scene in a documentary about him where it's he is left with his child, and it's a shot of him, this huge, like buff guy, like cradling this child very gently.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, and that's, to me, that's a good thing for any human to possess as well.
Yeah.
But I think that it's, if you're, so I guess just going back to like the nuclear family, like if your dad is not the most nurturing human ever, you're not going to suffer too much for that. But if your mother is not particularly nurturing, then I think that there's a problem there. There's something that you'll be missing out on. And it's good for both of your parents to be that way.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
But I think in particular, if you don't have the most nurturing father, if you have a mother who's more nurturing, that's more of a benefit to the child.
Okay. Huh. Well, see, yeah, I don't know. I come to a problem with the terms because I guess a lot of me doesn't understand why there's still such a necessity to try to draw those lines. Where we try to put like male traits in one box and female traits in another box. And yeah, of course we acknowledge that there's going to be crossover. I mean, because like no one is, I think you would agree, no one is 100% masculine, no one is 100% feminine. We all kind of exist on some spectrum between the two. But considering that
you're going to lean one way or the other. It's kind of like, for me at least, with sexuality, sexuality also exists on a spectrum, but you'll always kind of prefer one thing.
Yeah, but it's not like, I don't think you could find someone that it's like, oh yeah, they are 100% masculine. Every trait they have is considered 100% masculine. They have no feminine traits at all. You know, like I feel like that would be impossible to find.
I mean, if they're really good at putting on a show or playing a role, then someone might make you think that.
Yeah,
but
well,
I don't think it's true. I don't think it's true that anyone's 100% either. But I think people lean one way or the other. And like I said, I mean, there's plenty of outliers. I mean,
yeah.
But if you look at, I mean, the types of occupations people tend to prefer, women tend to be in like pediatric healthcare, nursing, many times psychiatric healthcare, early child care development, early child education, things of that nature. And that's not to say that there's not men that do those jobs. There are men that do those jobs, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Because as long as every person that does whatever they're doing can bring something unique and beneficial to that role in their occupation, then that's a good thing. But
Yeah.
I mean, there has to be a reason why we tend to have more females in jobs that are related to communication and art and care of other individuals. One thing that's kind of cool is if you look at athletics, there's actually a pretty even amount of people that do like physical education or play sports. The distributions are actually pretty even.
Really?
In the US, if you look at them. I mean, it's not 50-50, obviously. I don't think that really exists
Yeah.
in any sample group in the real world.
But I don't know if we could ever isolate whether those the reasons for those differences are nature versus nurture. Is it biological or is it societal? I don't think we can figure that out, right? Because I feel like it would take some incredibly unethical studies to be able to actually learn that.
Would it be appropriate, do you think, to take perhaps a country that strives to be as egalitarian as possible and makes it a goal of theirs to have equality between men and women and something that they strive toward? Would that be an adequate sample group, do you think, to isolate that? Maybe not completely, but a little bit more?
I don't know because it's still, you're still growing up in a basically global society at this point where you're still going to have influences in media and everything that are going to push you towards one way or another as a, you know what I mean? Like you can't just grow up as a child in a complete vacuum and then monitor what they're going to lean towards. You know, that there's always going to be these inputs that you can't account for. That it's like I think it's going to be impossible to really isolate that. But
well, if we're talking about marketing and media, I mean, if you notice, companies go so far as to name a product something different for a specific country.
Yeah.
And marketing, if you notice, tends to be geared toward who the audience is. But and the reason why I'm asking the question, if you had a more egalitarian country, one of the third most egalitarian countries in the world, Norway, which is a place where they actually do strive. They release statistics regularly to show their progress as far as how they're doing in making things as equal and egalitarian as possible.
Okay.
They have the same trends in employment.
Well, yeah, but I mean, again, like I'm saying, it's like you're still growing up in, you know, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if that actually speaks to whether it's nature, nurture, or either. I would say that, you know, in reality, it's got to be some mix of the two. But I honestly, like, I believe I don't know how much nature plays a part. I think a lot of it is societal. I think a lot of I mean, you know, everything that we consider gender and all the behaviors associated are purely learned. I don't know if there's anything really biologically based there.
Didn't you just say it was a little bit of both?
I'm saying that I guess it has to be probably, but I don't know how much I believe that it really is.
You said purely learned. So like, is it a little bit of both, or is it just learned?
Well, again, I don't think we could ever actually isolate that. I personally believe that it's close to 100% learned, but again, I don't think that that's like data that we could ever reach. You know, it's something that's like agnostic to me, where it's like that's kind of what I believe, but I don't know if it's something that's actually knowable.
So do you think that a learned social norm or a genetic predisposition would be a stronger inclination for a human, or actually for an animal? Let's say mammals in general. Or we could say humans.
A stronger inclination? I mean, I would assume, I would think that the social norms are stronger.
Well, if a cat grows up around puppies and is raised with dogs their entire existence, they might act a little bit different than a normal cat, but there would be mostly cat-like behaviors in that animal.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Because I mean, if you notice, even a kitten that you get at a very young age, and then you take home, that's only exposed to other cats within, you know, the first month of its life, maybe 2 months. You'll take it home and it will live with you, but it will still exhibit behaviors that are common for a cat.
Mhm. Well, but I mean, also that's a completely different species, and they learn. You don't know how much we know about what they learn, but like cats, unlike humans, they learn a lot more in their first few weeks. You know, like humans are kind of like incredibly fragile and basically harm or like hopeless for the first long while versus like look at how many mammals. I mean, look at even deer that can walk after just a few hours. You know, like animals learn and absorb things from their surroundings at completely different speeds. So I don't know if that really like maps over to humanity that well, but
It's the only ethical example we have.
yeah, which is
I mean, we can't like abduct a child and like, and it's never exposed to a human. Like nobody does that. It's cruel
exactly.
and awful.
I mean, that's what I said
Um,
earlier, where it's like I think the only way to actually know this would just be completely unethical studies that would never happen. So it's like it's not really, yeah. I don't know if it's something that we could know in reality.
So, I mean, I guess if we're, because I don't think that it's proper to completely bar um, occupational statistics. It doesn't really make sense. There's only so much that we have to go on, and this seems as if I don't think that using nature versus nurture as an argument is a valid reason to bar occupational statistics.
Well, but I mean, what do the statistics mean in the sense of this discussion, anyways? Really?
It shows you can an individual has to have a certain aptitude towards something in order to do it for a living. And if individuals have an aptitude toward a specific thing, then they will tend to choose that thing as a living. It's very
Mhm.
rare that people choose things to do for a living that they're not good at. And if
Mhm.
they do, they change careers pretty quickly. Or they end up finding a job that has nothing to do with what it was that they initially went to be trained for.
I don't know if
So
I don't know if I buy that though. There's a lot of people that work as, garbage men for their entire careers. I don't know if that's really something that they, not that there's anything wrong with being a garbage man, but it's like do you really, would you argue that they have an aptitude for that or that it just pays the bills?
um, that would be, to make that a more general statement, we're talking about a job that requires physical labor, correct?
Uh yeah, I mean some. I don't think the modern garbage man really does. It's more like, you
Why are you
line up.
saying garbage? Why are you saying garbage man?
Uh, well, I guess
Why?
is garbage person the right term?
No, I mean, why are you saying man and not garbage person?
I just because it's a like out of like nomenclature. Same reason I
How
would say
often
fireman than fire person. It's just kind of a term.
we'll have to veer anecdotal here because that's where the conversation is going to go anyway. It has to, a conversation like this.
Yeah.
So, in your lifetime, how many people have you seen that were garbage women?
I've known quite a few garbage women. No, as far as like actually someone working in the sanitation industry, not I don't know if I ever have, honestly.
Neither have I.
Yeah. But again, I don't know that I can't say that speaks to anything biological or just that that it's a societal norm.
So would you say that being a garbage person, uh, being a garbage person requires any type of rigorous training or like a specific skill set?
Oh, I have no idea. I would
I
assume
mean,
not though. But
well, I guess what I'm asking is, does it really require formal education to be a garbage person?
I would think that it is not.
We agree. I don't think that it would require any formal education to do that. I think it would just require maybe a day or two worth of training,
Mm-hmm.
and then that would pretty much be that. So, would you say that being a telephone customer service representative requires a degree of formal education or just on the job training?
Well, that I have done. So I know it's on the job training. It's longer than just a day or two, but or depending on what company you work for. But yeah, I don't think it's
Right.
any formal education.
I've also done customer service work.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, we worked at the same place
Yeah.
for a little while.
Yeah, we did.
And this is, once again, this is relying completely on the terrible thing that is human memory.
Mm-hmm.
But if I recall, the customer service people that we worked with at that organization, I think there was maybe roughly a third male and 2/3 female.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah.
So we're looking at two different occupations that require only on-the-job training and no formal education.
Mm-hmm.
Why is it that there were more people that were female doing customer service, and there are, in our experience at least, once again anecdotal,
Mm-hmm.
in our experience, how come we've seen no people that were collecting garbage that were not male?
Well, again, I don't know if that at all. I would make the argument that it does not at all speak towards biology, but it's just a societal thing. If you grow up in a society where you're constantly told that one gender does one thing and one gender does another, you tend to just kind of fall in line with that.
Well, we were never emasculated for doing customer service work. No one ever told us that customer service work was women's work. Nobody ever told us that we weren't men if we did customer service.
Mm-hmm.
I've never heard anybody emasculate someone for being a customer service representative.
Yeah, I'm not saying like specifically doing that. I'm just saying like growing up in a society where quote unquote male or masculine traits mean you're supposed to do a certain thing could lean you towards that direction versus,
Our society puts no pressure on women to do customer service work.
Maybe not directly, but I don't know.
How does it do it indirectly?
Well, just like the way you're saying of like, viewing feminine traits as being more nurturing or caring or things like that to guide towards professions that are more involved with service like that or with with nurturing, I guess. Just like, I mean, like the nursing field being completely dominated by women. That I don't know. I don't believe that is very rooted in anything biological, nor do I know if that really makes a difference in this conversation. But I mean, like we're saying, we have no way of knowing if that's one way or another, right?
We can deduce, which is really all that we can do in this discussion. I mean, deductive reasoning is the only thing that we can really use.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't see anybody discouraging males from being customer service representatives, even though, well, I mean, what skills would you say are required for customer service?
Patience, listening. That's really about it, honestly. Not.
How many times have you had a significant other tell you don't listen?
What?
Or how many times have you heard males that say that their female significant others have said that they never listen? How many times have you had female friends of yours tell you that their male significant others don't listen?
I don't know. No,
I have not, at least in my life, had a single occasion in which one of my male friends came up to me and said, "Oh man, my girlfriend doesn't listen." Never happens.
I've heard that.
Really?
Yeah.
Would you say that it's happened more often, males saying that females don't listen, or vice versa?
Well, honestly, okay, so I don't have a lot of close friends that I've talked to about their relationships, really. The friends that I could think of, I guess, okay, so I may not be a fair example because I don't know if I've had any like close friends that were female that would come to me about relationship problems. So maybe the only examples that I have are my male friends. So I don't know if that would be a fair assessment then.
Well, I mean, in my experience, every female friend that I have has at some point mentioned that their significant other doesn't listen to them, and very often, female coworkers that I work, that I have a rapport with, that I work reasonably close to. But I'm not saying that there's not outliers, but I would say that it's rare that, and you can even see in a public place, if you watch two males that are at a table with each other, speaking to one another, and then you look at two females, most of the time you will see males in a more casual sort of posture. Whereas when you look at the females, they are clearly actively listening. They're making eye contact, they're nodding their head, they're leaning into the speaker. And I think that that if listening is a requirement for someone to be a good customer service representative, that examples can be seen in everyday life that generally not all the time, but generally speaking, women tend to be better listeners than males. And this is a job that no one says women are supposed to do, customer service. It's not a job that anyone says that, men shouldn't do. Even like the most macho, insecure person would, that at least I know, I don't think, and I don't know for sure, but I don't think that they would emasculate someone for working in customer service unless they were just that much of an asshole.
Okay.
So it's a type of job in which no one is necessarily pressuring anybody to do one thing or the other. But I would argue that the aptitude that you have to have naturally tends to gravitate toward women. That patience and listening. I mean, I'm not saying that there's no patient males. Of course there are. There's patient all kinds of people. But I think generally speaking, is there a type of human that you can think of that requires a whole lot of patience?
Kids?
Yes.
Yeah.
Children. And I can say that in my experience, I was a child at some point before coming to this point in my life, so I have some experience. My recollection's a bit fuzzy, but you can see, like, even in public places when there's children with their parents, oftentimes you'll notice, and not always, like I said, generally you will notice that mothers will be a bit more patient with their children than fathers will be.
Okay.
And some of that has to do with, there's a whole lot of variables there, obviously proximity to the children, how often you're in close proximity. So it's entirely possible that an individual that's with the child constantly may be a little less patient, or a person that has a high stress level already will be less patient with the child.
Okay.
But I think that the majority of the time when I see parents, that mothers tend to be quite a lot more patient with children than fathers do.
Okay.
Not always, obviously. It depends on a whole lot.
But again, I guess, I mean, I don't see how we could ever say that. Well, first of all, like, I don't know if this even pertains to the discussion at hand, but I don't honestly think we can say that is either a nature versus nurture thing. If you grow up in a society where you are constantly reinforced that women are more patient or better listeners, you may just fall into line with that rather than it being an actual, like, biological predisposition towards that.
Would you say that I guess in contrast, would you say that we live in a society, I'll use the word, that encourages males to be very aggressive and very confident and very assertive? Basically all the traits that I talked about that I considered masculine. Would you say that we live in a society that makes males feel as if they're supposed to be those things?
Yes. Yeah. And some of the traits that I think you wanted to leave out of your definition of masculinity too, that I think is kind of some of the harming parts. Yeah. I do think that there is a reinforcement of that.
Yeah. And I mean, we probably agree that the four major things that we think are harmful are the pursuit of power, the pursuit of money, the pursuit of gratuitous sex, it's particularly the meaningless kind, and the whole boys don't cry mentality. Those are the things that, so yeah, I agree that both of those things are that all four of those things are not good things to pursue. And obviously an unnecessary aggressiveness is ridiculous too, correct?
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah.
Not a good thing. And also, like, acting tough or like posing or posturing is also a bit ridiculous, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But if those traits are something that's encouraged so much in our society, why is it that there's an increasingly lower amount of males that show or express those traits outwardly?
Well, I think that there has been, I mean, like we kind of started to talk about with the changes that we've seen in society within, what I would consider recent times. But I feel like there is a shift that is like happening with how we consider those roles to be defined and required. And I feel like, like there's like a little bit of like a rubber band effect where we're kind of trying to find like that balance, but I think things are kind of bouncing back and forth between, like what is expected of someone that's supposed to be a certain gender and what is not.
Yeah, and I don't intend to argue that these traits are required.
Yeah.
The argument here is that they're beneficial.
We'll see.
That
Yeah,
there
I
is
mean,
a need in the existential crisis for these traits to, because I'm not saying that it's like, I say things to other men like, don't hide your feelings like a little bitch. Talk to me about what you're feeling. Like, only pussies don't talk about what they're feeling. Let's have a conversation and let's open up to each other. Like, be vulnerable, dude. Don't be weak and hide behind all of the posing and the posturing and the chest puffing. So it's like it's pressuring the other way.
Okay.
Because it's the idea that you use the same like old bullshit like macho boy like language, but you express it in a different fashion. So I truly believe that masculinity needs to be redefined. It does, but that doesn't mean that we need to give up on all the good traits that were typically associated with that. Because when it gets to the point where any kind of assertiveness in a male is perceived as aggression, well, then there's a problem there.
Yeah, I guess. But again, though, it seems like, well, first of all, it seems like we're picking and choosing from this basket that for so long has been considered the traits of masculinity. We're kind of picking a few that are good and acting like the other ones weren't part of it. And
This
I think
is the reason why I didn't use the word traditional, because that's what you're talking about.
Well, yeah, but
traditional masculinity is complete horseshit. Like, what historically has been associated with males is garbage.
Okay. But but if we're only picking the positive ones out of that, and again, I guess my yeah,
Okay,
I guess that is a good point.
Which ones do you want to talk about? Which ones have I skipped over?
Well,
let's address those.
No, that's not really where I was trying to go with that.
Let's address those.
Well, I mean, they're the ones that you just kind of brought up there, like the like the whole like boys will be boys mentality, the like men don't cry, that kind of
Yeah, well, I did just bring those up though. Yes. I didn't hide from those.
Well, I didn't say that you were. I'm just saying, like, as far as like using a new definition of masculinity that to many people don't include everything that the baggage that word usually brings with it. You know what I mean? Like you're saying, like
which baggage are we referring to in particular?
Well, again, like the whole like boys will be boys mentality, men don't cry, those type of things. Like when you say masculinity to the vast majority of people, I think that those kind of ideas are lumped in with that as well.
Yeah, I think that to use the modern terminology, those traits are the word masculinity with the word toxic in front of it.
But I mean, is there a difference between the two?
100%. There's a difference between the two. One of them is antisocial, harmful cowardice, and the other thing is a way to be a better, more content person who makes the lives of those around them better.
Okay, but it seems like a lot of maybe I'm thinking of the wrong idea of masculinity then, but it seems like a lot of what I would think of is just the exaggeration of those traits, where it's almost like, like we can both agree that confidence is a good thing.
Well, the exaggeration of the traits isn't masculine, it's macho.
Okay, well, but I think to a lot of people, though, they kind of fall under a very similar umbrella. I think that like a lot of the ideas of machismo or whatever are basically just the exaggeration of masculinity. And it's like the same with like confidence into cockiness, where it's like confidence in itself can be a good trait, but whenever it's exaggerated to cockiness, I think that becomes negative.
Correct. So that's why we don't allow it to exaggerate into cockiness. That's why we keep people in check. That's why we need to be responsible for this stuff. So like when I tell my friend, who's going through a tough time, who's hiding his feelings, bro, don't be a bitch. Talk to me about your feelings.
Mm-hmm.
It's essentially going the other way around, using the old, like, you know, bullshit, macho, emasculating language to tell your friend to open up.
Yeah. Okay.
Because that's harmful. It's harmful to keep stuff inside like that. You're only going to hurt.
Okay.
And, you know, like, it's not good for anybody, especially not the person who's doing it.
Mm-hmm.
But I would also say that at the same time, it's, hey man, don't, because the thing is I don't use that jarring language, at least in my personal life.
Okay.
Once again, veering anecdotal here, to describe the other traits. So the traits that were sort of kind of always sort of associated with it. So the confidence and the assertiveness, and only aggressiveness when required, because aggressiveness is oftentimes a waste of time and just posing. Sorry, getting parchy here. Had to take a drink. But what I'm talking about is the same sort of thing. Like, hey, why would you allow your coworker to speak to you in that fashion?
Mm-hmm.
Why did you allow that coworker to speak to that other person like that? And when you saw that they weren't going to step up, why didn't you stand up for that person? It's the same thing. And you know, now that you've exhibited, because to me, sorry, my air conditioning is making weird noises, or maybe that's my cat. Because to me, when you are a human who protects another human from harm, possibly using violence, that's another way to express love for that person.
Okay.
And it doesn't necessarily have to be violence. I mean, it could just be like someone speaking inappropriately to a coworker and being like, why would you say that? What makes you think that's okay? Yeah. And that's just another way to express love for another person.
I would agree with that. I mean, like we were talking about earlier, that's kind of, I even like said, you know, one of the positive traits that I would consider is, you know, standing up for yourself or others when needed. But again, I feel that that's something that I don't know. It seems like from what we picked out, then the positive terms, like, I guess we both agree that maybe the term masculinity needs to be redefined, like you said. I'm maybe the only one that takes an issue with using the word masculine to define them, because I do see them as beneficial for anyone, and I don't know. I don't see the benefit in causing this division then, where, you know, does that mean that a woman that exemplifies these traits very much, she's masculine, and would that make her, you know, like, feel negative that she is too masculine?
Well, she shouldn't feel negative for showing any of those traits any more than a male should feel negative for showing any kind of nurturing traits.
But, well, I mean, that's the thing though, is I think in our society that happens a lot. I mean, I know I've been made to feel and it's not, again, it's only anecdotal, and like the argument would be that that's, you know, it's wrong for that to happen, but it does happen where you're made to feel, I guess, quote unquote, less of a man, or for lack of a better term, because of either identifying with or having what are considered feminine traits. And I feel like that kind of causing that division and lumping terms into two different behavioral umbrellas, I don't see that it's positive. I see that the traits themselves are positive, but by using terms that are associated with two different genders, I don't know. I don't see that in itself brings about something that's positive.
So in this discussion, we're mainly talking about whether or not masculinity is beneficial. Yeah. Particularly for young men, which is sort of what I asserted at the beginning of this. Mm-hmm. So I don't think that it's not necessarily relevant to the discussion to talk about like women, because really and truly the debate doesn't have anything to do with that necessarily. This isn't the femininity debate. I mean, we can totally have one if you'd like. But obviously there are certain points in the conversation where you have to mention the other thing. Femininity has to come into the discussion at certain points, but the main focus is still masculinity. So whether or not feminine traits are necessarily beneficial to women isn't really part of the discussion.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah.
Feminine traits are good for everyone too, but
Yeah.
there's a certain degree to which the idea of the traits that we typically associate with masculinity tend to be more beneficial for males. And if you look at a lot of the responses that males have, there seems to be a bit of a crisis here, where a lot of young men in particular, because I mean, old men, they grew up in a different time anyway, and they're detached from a lot of recent issues or things that are being discussed among people our age. But I mean, you look at this crisis that a lot of people end up in, where they feel, males in particular, young men in particular, feel sort of left out, and they end up in the most of which I would say are compulsive watching of pornography or gaming addiction. Now, I don't necessarily know if pornography is 100% bad all the time. That's not necessarily part of the discussion. But compulsively doing anything is not a healthy thing.
Yeah.
If it's something that you just do whenever you feel like it randomly, then there's not necessarily a good thing about it. And the least of those problems, I would say, is actually drugs and alcohol. I think that compulsive pornography viewing and gaming addiction is probably a lot worse.
Okay.
And then you'll also see a lot of people respond with unnecessary aggressiveness. And you'll see them doing like the whole like tough guy posing stuff, but a lot of it is just an unhealthy association with the people around them. And if you look at many people that withdraw to internet forums that are resentful toward women and tend to make a lot of misogynist statements and have a lot of misogynist beliefs, individuals who also withdraw into things like playing video games in an addictive fashion, or watching pornography compulsively, or participating in drug use or alcohol, a lot of the time, or unnecessary aggressiveness, like we'll go to the extreme here, running over a bunch of people with a car, shooting lots of people, or planting a car bomb in a populated area. A lot of the time, it's not because those individuals it's not because they're male or because they're being masculine. It's quite the opposite. And if you're guessing, I'm talking to a community that call themselves incels.
Okay.
I mean, you're familiar with those people, correct? Those individuals.
Yeah, definitely.
Have you been on their forums and seen the things they say?
No, I try to steer clear of that kind of corner of the internet.
So for the sake of this, I did.
Okay.
And a lot of the stuff they have to say is very misogynistic in nature.
Yeah.
They say grotesquely, violently sexual things about women. There's actually a lot of links to pornography.
Is there, but is there any chance that any of that stems from coming from a society where you are told that you're not masculine enough and that you are rebounding to that kind of pressure with an overt, just taking it too far?
I don't necessarily. Well, whose responsibility is those individuals' behavior?
Their own. Their own.
Okay. Why are we blaming society for something that they're responsible for?
Well, because everyone, of course, is responsible for your own actions, but to completely negate the causes or some sort of inspiration for those actions or that response, I think is a little disingenuous, though.
Wait, hold on. What's disingenuous? I missed that bit.
To completely ignore. Again, like I said, like of course, their actions are their responsibility, but trying to learn where the cause or root of those actions would come from, I think, is important.
But I think that this is taking a lot of responsibility away from those individuals. It's actually demeaning to them.
I don't follow.
Why don't we empower incels? Why don't we help instead of making excuses for them?
Well, I don't think
There's
that's
a lot of traits that we've talked about in this conversation that would be beneficial.
trying to determine what causes something, though. I don't think is a excuse. I mean, there's got to be a, like, I mean, again, it's not like taking responsibility for it, but there's got to be a cause to the effect, right?
Okay. Well, not necessarily. I mean, the charge could be the cause could be neuroscience.
True.
Well, would you say that you have a solution
Um,
to the plight of an incel? Someone, but by the way, I realize that we're taking for granted that people understand what this means. Incel is a community of young males who call themselves, and sometimes not young, sometimes middle-aged. They call themselves involuntarily celibate.
Yeah.
They're individuals who are resentful because they have not had sex, and they have some degree of what's the word? Let's call it indignation. They
Okay.
have some degree of indignation against someone or something, society, women, I don't know.
There's a big,
About
there's a
the
big,
fact that they're celibate.
there's a big like entitlement factor there too, where they feel that that they're kind of entitled to some sort of reaction or response from people that maybe they haven't earned or honestly deserve, right?
Yeah, I mean that it seems to reek of entitlement. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I would agree with you in that. But could you think of any traits that we've discussed that are associated with masculinity that could be beneficial to those individuals, to incels?
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, basically anything that we discussed as the positive traits in the beginning.
Right, and what they're displaying are negative traits, aren't they?
Yeah, definitely, yeah. But
They want to
again,
have power over women. They want to have sex, like they're entitled to it.
yeah, but there are a lot of the traits that I excuse me, a lot of the traits that I think many people would consider that fall under the umbrella of masculinity. Even though, like we've both agreed, it's when it's taken to an extreme and it's no good. But it is, I think, to a lot of people that, I mean, because it's like in the context of this discussion, we've kind of redefined masculinity to only be these positive traits, and it's like, well, of course, then it's a good thing for young men to have, because it's, we've isolated just the positivity, and like we said, it's a good thing for really anyone to have. So it's like,
is this like an all or nothing discussion? Do we take all of it or none of it?
well, I don't know.
Well,
I think
guess
it's,
which definition are we using?
well,
Because that's unclear now.
well, I mean, yeah, that's kind of the issue, is I think that a word with this much baggage means different things to different people. So it's like, I mean, in the context of this discussion, we're trying to use the definition that you set out with, but it's tough to have a discussion about a greater society that doesn't recognize just that definition.
So I guess because I think that the number one topic of discussion is the fact that the things that have typically been associated with masculinity were associated with gender roles.
Yeah.
And because of the prosperity of the society in which we live in, those roles are really not particularly necessary.
Yeah.
So there's a requirement for us to adjust the definition, because if people keep using the one that they're used to, or that was typically used in the past, then it will be somewhat of a benefit, but also a detriment, because there's plenty of stuff that's not good involved in that.
Yeah, exactly. True. Yeah. Yeah, that's
so there's a requirement to redefine it in modern culture.
yes.
We have to, but the thing is that the positive traits remain positive.
Well, of course. I mean, because I mean, they simply are just positive traits.
Right.
Yeah.
And I would say that if you are an individual who feels that they are not appealing to the opposite sex, well, then that's an indication that you should make an effort to cultivate confidence, integrity, and independence.
Okay. Yeah.
You can't blame the individual because you don't show any undesirable traits. Like if you haven't made an effort to increase your intellect or to have life experience or to try to be more wise
Mm-hmm.
or interesting, or if you haven't showered in a week, or if you completely let yourself go and neglect yourself and stop taking care of yourself, well, why would anybody want to invite you into their life?
Mm-hmm.
So, in that regard, the traits of masculinity that are beneficial to everyone, including incels.
Well, of course. Yeah.
But I don't think that the reason why there's individuals doing these things, why the rate of suicide among males is up as of late, I think actually within the last 5 years, I'll have to look at the statistics again. That I don't think that it's because of the fact that we're telling people that they're not man enough or whatever. I think it's quite the opposite. I think it's the fact that a lot of young men are having somewhat of a crisis as far as where they fit in. And part of the reason is the fact that there can be no terms agreed upon by the majority of people on what masculinity is and what it should be.
Yeah. Well,
There's a lot of occasions in which a lot of young men are sitting around waiting for someone to tell them who and what they're supposed to be.
yes, but I also think, I mean, there's definitely occasions where you're being told that you're not what you're supposed to be. And in response to that, you become an exaggerated version of what you think those people want you to be.
And who's responsible for becoming that exaggerated version of themselves?
The person that does that, definitely.
So it's their responsibility. And I think as individuals, we should exhibit the traits that are positive
Mm-hmm.
and forego all the ones that are negative and be an example to the people around us.
Well, yeah, of course. But I mean, I think though, to completely ignore that root and to act like it doesn't exist isn't very beneficial.
Which route are we talking about?
Like the pressure that could be put on from society to, like, again, like I was saying, like the example of someone being told over and over again that they're not man enough, and it almost like a rubber band effect, they just try to become an exaggerated version of what they feel like they're supposed to be.
I don't know that's a common occurrence. I don't know that there's a whole lot of people that end up being an exaggerated version of masculinity because they're told that they're not man enough.
I've I've seen that. I mean, again, it's anecdotal, but I mean, like we said, that's only, all this conversation can be. But I've seen that a lot with people that were, in high school or middle school, bullied for being kind of like a nerdy kid or being, scrawny, things like that, and then they kind of turn it around to be, you know, they then all of a sudden they want to be an army ranger. They go too far overboard and they end up shooting up a school. That, like, things like that happen.
Wait,
I mean, those examples
hold
are.
on, you lost me. So you're talking about a specific individual who has a desire to be an army ranger and they shoot up a school instead?
It could be. Yes.
Why are we associating those two things? Do you know someone in particular who's done this exact thing?
I mean, I don't know the person personally, no, but someone that, but yeah, I mean, again, yeah, a school shooter that, according to the best evidence that I've seen about their past, they were kind of like picked on and bullied for not being quote unquote man enough, and turned around to become a super exaggerated version of what they thought a man was supposed to be.
Who are you talking about?
The what is the kid's name? The shooter of that school in Florida, was it the Parkland school? I think his name was like Dylan something. I'm not. I don't like. I didn't look into it enough to. I wasn't trying to like glorify the kid or anything. But I've seen. I mean, even like not going that far, but even seen examples of kids that were picked on in high school or so, for being scrawny and weak, and turned around and became the asshole cop that is like abusing authority. It's like I feel like that. Again, it's purely anecdotal, but I feel like that kind of situation does happen. and to act like, I mean, yes, of course, like you're saying, it is that person's responsibility, but to act like the pressures of society had nothing to do with that situation, I don't think is 100% beneficial. I think
How do
that
we know? How do we know for a fact that it was because that you're talking about Dylan Roof? Is that correct?
I maybe was that the shooter of the Parkland school.
I'll have to find. Okay, Parkland.
I think that
Dylan
was
Roof
them.
is someone that did a shooting in Charleston, South Carolina.
Oh, I might be getting names mixed up then, but
Because I mean, if you're, I find it, I find it interesting that you're using an individual as an example in a debate whose name escapes you.
well, I mean, I'm not trying to
Um,
use that particular individual. I'm trying to use that idea or that archetype that I feel like we both know has happened. And again, it's only anecdotal, but I mean that's definitely a
but
thing
is
that
that, but
happened.
is that a result of someone being told that they're not man enough? Is that really what's happening? Is that the reason why the individual is doing what they're doing?
I
Because
I
I
don't
don't
think you
think
can
that.
isolate one reason. No, I think that it
Well, then
would
why are
play
we
into it.
isolating? Why are we isolating them not being man enough?
What I don't think I am. We're just saying that you know that there's more than one thing that plays into
Well, that's what
that
was
happening,
used. That
right?
was just used as an argument to talk about the exaggerated sense of masculinity.
Yes, because it could be one thing that plays into that.
It could be, but is it?
I don't think there's any way of knowing.
Exactly. So then why are we using that as an example of someone that was told they weren't man enough?
I
If there's no
I
way for us to know, then it doesn't apply. We can't use that. It's not relevant.
Well, we had an entire like 30-minute discussion earlier about professions when there's no way of us knowing if that's the cause either, right? So I mean, it's like I don't know. We're having what I thought was an anecdotal discussion, so I felt like it was something that could be
Yeah,
brought
well,
up.
I don't know that it's I don't know that it can be because I didn't actually assert that there was no way to know for sure. That was your assertion in the debate that we couldn't say whether or not it was a society thing or a nature thing. Sorry,
Okay.
nature or nurture, as we tend to say.
Yeah.
Um, I didn't actually assert that. That was a point that you were making.
Oh, okay.
So I don't necessarily agree with that. I was just sort of going with it for the sake of the discussion. But I would say that it's a pretty clear indication because I think that genetic predisposition is stronger than societal pressures
Okay.
because they're genes. I mean, there's certain things about people that just won't change. There's some things about people that seem to be pretty innate from the moment that they're born,
Okay.
like propensity toward risk taking and many other behaviors.
Well, don't those things do change though? Like when we know instances where they do, like drastically.
Which ones?
Like the first one you brought up, like risk taking,
Okay,
right?
give an
Or,
example.
um
I mean, which
if
examples?
you okay, so if you end up being infected with toxoplasmosis, you are way more likely to be a risk taker and engage in dangerous behaviors, and that's
I
like because of a
I don't know what
parasitic
that is.
the parasite that comes from okay, so it's really fucking fascinating. The only way the parasite can reproduce is in the stomach of cats, and it finds a way to rewire mouse brains to actually be sexually attracted to cat urine, so it can get the body of the mouse into the cat's body, into the cat's stomach, and then reproduce. And in basically all mammals that we found, whenever you're infected with this, it leads to you being a bigger risk taker and participating in more dangerous activities. So like that's something that it's like, yeah, you may have a genetic predisposition to that, but it's like that changes due to a completely external factor that's just a parasite.
What is it exactly that causes the behavior change
I think
in the parasite?
well,
Like, what
I
is
don't know if
it
I understand the
by
mechanism of how it affects the brain, but it's
by what mechanism? Well, then we need to understand that in order to know if this is a valid argument, or sorry, a sound argument. So you said toxoplasmosis.
yes. Yeah, it's
Because I'm willing to bet that it probably changes brain chemistry,
Possibly, yeah.
Which isn't at all that doesn't apply to this like at all.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Well, I mean, it doesn't. If you're changing the brain chemistry of a living thing, then it's not going to act the same way.
Okay.
We're not, and this is a parasite, not a society applying pressure to someone. This is not analogous.
Okay. Gotcha.
So yeah, I'm still making that. I mean, that's still a premise here that the genetic predisposition of an animal is, well, sorry, a social animal like humans, their genetic predisposition
Mm-hmm.
is much stronger than societal pressures.
I don't have enough experience in either genetic science or like social sciences to argue for or against that.
I mean, it's pretty clear that there are certain things that are instinctive, that are innate among several different types of animals.
Mm-hmm.
And humans are an animal.
Yes.
I mean, the need for social interaction is something that's common among all of us. Even introverts need time to recharge, but eventually they will seek out social togetherness with some group of people.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
In some fashion or another. And that's something that the majority of humans are, well, actually pretty much every human's genetically predisposed to be. And you can't really stop people from having that need.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say in the same way that you can't stop an individual for having a requirement for certain things in their life. And I think that the majority of males are predisposed to want to have some kind of fight to have, or some kind of adventure, or something to pursue. And plenty of women want the same thing, and that's good. But
is there not a chance
that
that's just like a part of the human condition? That there's something male about that, or?
There are plenty of women that I know that do not have any type of adventure in their life, that are perfectly content with their existence. And there are a whole lot more males that live relatively boring lives that are pretty miserable. And there's other individuals that are male that oftentimes will have a relatively boring life and not be particularly active and not necessarily have a sense of adventure in their life. But you'll soon discover that they play video games in which there's all kinds of adventure happening and all kinds of battles to fight. Not to say that women don't play video games. Plenty of women play video games.
Mm-hmm.
I play video games with lots of women.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that there's something distinct about the need for adventure.
Okay. So is that but that's not like one of the beneficial masculine traits though, or what's the?
It's something.
I'm losing the connection here.
It's something that we have to deal with, that males are just going to desire. Is a battle to fight or an adventure to live. And I think that what happens is when those things are not provided, you end up needing to find some other way to fulfill them. This is the reason why I think why overly aggressive behavior occurs in some situations, and why people go after power and money and sex, is because it's the only thing they can really get that feels the same way as a sort of battle or an adventure. I mean,
Okay.
even having a goal can feel like an adventure or a fight.
Okay.
And that's not to say, once again, that's not to say that women won't benefit from having a goal, but I think that there's a certain amount of necessity that males have in particular, that many of us will not be content if we don't have that, and we'll have to get it from somewhere.
That's it. Yeah, I guess. I mean, I'm not. I'm not a woman, so I can't speak on from any experience there. But I don't know. To me, it just seems like that's something that every human needs. I don't know if I'd agree that that's like a male trait, but again, like I'm not a woman, so I can't actually.
Why
Can't actually
do you
speak there.
disagree?
because from what you're saying, it just seemed like the general needing like an adventure or something to do, like it just seems like that's something that any human desires. From, I mean, from what I've seen, like I don't know. I mean, again, like I think you have a lot more social experience than I do, so I don't know. I don't have any experience in being a woman, so I can't really speak, from that point of view.
I think that the biggest reason why this issue is such a big deal to me has little to do with anything other than the fact that I feel so sad for the state of so many of the young men that I know. Like when I see young men that are not doing well in life, that don't have any of the things that they would like to have, and feel down and feel bad, and that the only thing that they have that's truly any kind of entertainment or joy in their life is playing video games. And look, I love video games. I play video games quite often.
Mm-hmm.
They're one of my favorite things. But when that's the only thing that they have, and they seem lonely and they seem discontent, that I don't think that it's because of anything. I don't think it's because they're being told they're not man enough. I think it's because they didn't have a healthy role model or a healthy example or a healthy understanding of what's necessary to succeed and be happy in life. And I truly believe that when you are independent, when you are resilient, when you are assertive, you will be a better person.
Well, yeah, exactly. But those are,
and that's true for everybody.
Yeah.
But it's a bigger problem for males in the West.
Why would you think it's a bigger problem for males in the West?
A lot of young men that I know that I've seen feel lost in so many ways for so many reasons.
But is that not a problem that women deal with too?
Yes, but it's not for the same reasons in the same regard.
Well,
a lot of people are facing, well, actually a crisis that I've seen a lot of young women that I know personally face is they want to know where all the good guys have gone. Like they want to find someone that's special to them. They want to have a meaningful relationship with an individual. They don't just want to be some girl on the side, bottom bitch, whatever fucked up asshole term you want to use to describe it. They don't want to just be some cheap thrill for somebody.
Okay.
They want somebody to offer them something real. And we're talking heterosexual women in this case.
Okay.
They're wondering, like, where is an individual who would be a beneficial part of my life? Like, what's happened to them?
Okay.
So I don't think that it's just males that are hurting from it. I think that in some ways, straight women are too. That it's, I want an individual that will be these things, but I can't find an individual that will. Because, like, look, I think you and I both agree that having a bunch of sex partners that doesn't make you a man. If anything does, that certainly doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what I don't know. I mean, like defining the term, like making someone a man, is tough for me. But no, I definitely would not consider that even anywhere near the list. No.
Because, I think that if you are appealing to a whole lot of women, that you don't get respect because of that.
Okay. Yeah.
And I think that it takes a degree of discipline to say, yes, I'm appealing to all of these people, but you know what? I would like to have one person that I can commit to and have something meaningful, instead of several cheap things that I don't have enough energy or time to nurture, relationship wise, I mean.
Okay. Yeah. But I think that's, I don't know. It's like, I mean, so much of this conversation just seems like it applies to everyone. I don't know. I'm still lost on why we draw the distinctions and why it's like it feels like it's a male problem, or because it seems like it's just a human problem. I think there's plenty of men that would want the same thing, right?
Well, plenty of men that would, well,
They want a partner that would be faithful to them, and like the exact inverse of what you're saying, or not. I'm sorry, not inverse, but you know what I'm saying. The exact.
yes, there's plenty of men that would want that, but I don't think there's a massive shortage of women that would be interested in that.
And yeah, I don't see a lot of this is like I feel like I need more experience with like social sciences to really speak on, because it's like I don't know if I could say that or not.
I mean, this doesn't really require someone to have a degree in psychology. It just requires someone to experience life.
Mm-hmm.
And there's many situations where, in the past, when I was lesser of a human, where I had a woman, or a girl at the time because I was much younger, woman, female, whatever, assert that this was not what they were looking for, and that they didn't want this sort of thing. That they were looking for something real, something that would last. They didn't just want to be some cheap thrill or some weekend fling. And that was many women that I had experience with, that I wasn't willing to commit because, admittedly, I was afraid, and that most of them wanted something more than what was happening. So, once again, like, this is a conversation that has to veer anecdotal. So that's where I'm kind of drawing the distinction from, is that it doesn't seem, while there's men and women that both want that same thing,
Yeah,
that there seems to be a much larger shortage of males.
I don't know. I don't have enough data to speak against that, really. I know that I've met plenty of guys that struggle with the exact same thing, though, where they can only meet women that are interested in one night stands, or like you're saying, flings, and unfortunately they're trying to find a more of a long distance not long distance, more of a long-term relationship, and they're not able to find that.
Maybe we all have bad selection methods then.
Possibly.
Yeah, I mean, since everybody's ending up with the wrong individual.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, it's like, I mean, in like, look at the methods that we have of dating or meeting people now. Like, even the switch to online dating and apps like that, it seems to almost nurture that type of experience rather than trying to find a long-term relationship. It's a lot easier to just find a hookup. And I think for both genders, or for that was not the right, for all genders. Sorry, that was not the right term.
What?
I said both, and I meant all. It was just I wasn't speaking as clearly as I should have been there.
Okay. So once again, since this is sort of becoming more anecdotal and more like experiential, is there any part of your life that you would say you're not particularly happy with right now? You don't have to answer if you don't want to.
My job, maybe? Yeah.
What is it about your job that's bothering you?
I feel like I am I feel like I'm underemployed. Yeah.
What do you mean?
Well, like I went and got a 4-year degree, but I'm working in a position that, only requires a high school diploma and only pays what someone with only a high school diploma would make. So I feel like, I got overeducated for the position that I'm in, and I would like to find something that would not, maybe not even directly use my 4-year degree, but at least something that's meant for someone that went and got a degree, I guess.
What is it that you would say is preventing you from changing that situation?
Just the experience that I've had in the past of trying to find another job. It never was very easy for me. So whenever I have something that I would consider is like the best job I've ever had, it's tough to think that it's realistic for me to think that I'm going to find something else.
So why why do you think why is it unrealistic for you to think that you could find something else?
Just because of how long it took me to even land this position, how many different temp agencies I had to go, to even get this. Like it, I know how long I was unemployed even after graduating, trying to find this position.
So you're not confident that you would find another position if you looked for one at this point?
No, and the looking that I have done, it has not been fruitful. No.
So it's been difficult.
Well, not difficult. It just seems like, from what I've seen, I don't want to say almost, literally every position that I have seen advertised that wants someone with a 4-year degree also requires, X number of years of experience in a certain field, usually between 3 and 5. So that's why it seems like it's like the best decision to stick with what I'm doing until I have that many years of experience, and then I can start trying to apply for these jobs that I'm seeing.
So you don't think that there's anything that could possibly help you in finding a different or better position other than years of experience?
Well, I mean, like, of course, like, like temp agencies or whatever have helped in the past, but I haven't seen many listings for jobs where entry level positions that require a 4-year degree that don't also require experience. Which I always think is silly, because it's like, why are you advertising something as entry level when you're asking for 5 years of experience in the field? To me, that's like not entry level, right? But
I wouldn't say that's entry level, no, because that's, well, yeah, for obvious reasons.
exactly, yeah.
A position that by definition means you are starting, but then they want you to have experience.
Yep.
So, I mean, do you think that, have you attempted to apply for some of those positions anyway?
Not many, no, but yes, a couple, yeah.
Why not though?
Why not more? I don't like the idea of applying for something that it's specifically telling me I'm not qualified for.
Well, it's funny because don't a lot of those say preferred, like 3 to 5 years experience preferred?
Well, I have seen that, and those were the ones that I have applied for, but many are like, it's actually listed under a section called requirements.
So is there anything you could do to make your current position more appealing?
I don't know.
In any way?
Not that I could think of offhand, no. But I mean, it's like, I feel bad, like I shouldn't be complaining about it, because again, I feel like I do feel fortunate to have the position that I do have. I mean, it's the best job that I've ever had. I've got, I get to sit in an air conditioned office. I have, benefits and everything. Like it's not that it's a bad job at all. Like, so I feel almost, like silly complaining about it or whatever. But
so you feel fortunate to have a job that you're not satisfied with?
Yeah, yeah, it kind of sucks to have it put that way, but yeah, because I mean, it is. I mean, in the scheme of things, it could be so much worse. So I do feel like I should be, grateful for what I have, but at the same time, like I'm saying, I don't know if it's entitlement, but I feel like because I put in the effort to get that degree, that maybe I should what am I trying to say? That maybe I don't want to say that I'm in, like, that I should have something better, whatever. But I feel like because I put in the time to get a 4-year degree, that should be a door that could be open to me, I guess.
Well, if you put in a proportionate amount of work to receive a proportionate benefit, I don't think that's entitlement at all. Entitlement means like, I am, therefore I deserve. Like, I get this thing because. And it's just like a sort of matter of fact thing. Whereas in this situation, you've put in some work, and that you believe there should be some payoff for it, which isn't, to me, I don't think that's unreasonable. But I mean, don't you think that some degree of confidence and tenacity would be beneficial in the situation that you're in?
Yeah, I mean, probably, of course. Well, yeah, I would say that in if you're trying to apply for a job or get a job, then yeah, definitely.
And having a better job would make you a more content person, right?
Ooh, I don't know. That's tough. At this point, I would hope so, but that's a hard question to answer.
Well, I'm sure you understand where I'm going with this. Like, I'm trying to express the fact that if we consider confidence and tenacity and assertiveness to be masculine traits, then those things could be beneficial in this situation.
Mm-hmm. Well,
And whether or
yeah,
not it makes you happier to have some ways to measure what a better job is would make you, it would be objectively a benefit.
Well, of course, yeah. I mean, because,
So-
but I mean, all that we've really said is, yeah, if you have some beneficial traits, that will be beneficial. Which I think
those
is
traits are
almost like just
typically-
tautology.
Those traits are typically associated with masculinity. That's the point that I'm making. And I understand that, you know, it's like traits that are good are going to make good things happen in your life. But the thing is that I think there's a particular need. It's not necessarily the fact that I think we're coming from two different directions. I think that we are probably both feeling infringed upon in different ways. We're probably both feeling like there's groups of individuals who seem to want to make us feel bad for being ourselves.
How so?
Many times when I'm assertive, I'm being told that I'm being aggressive. And when I'm using a somewhat pronounced tone, I'm being told that I am yelling when the decibel level has not increased. There are times when I talk about something that I enjoy doing, like lifting weights, and I'm accused of being macho, when in reality I'm just a person with a Y chromosome that likes to lift weights. And I think that there's a lot of times in which people want to make other individuals feel bad for who they are because they don't like that. The individual doesn't like who someone is.
Okay.
And so there is someone, perhaps, well, I'll talk about women in particular because that's who I would prefer to be appealing to in a romantic relationship, that there's occasions in which you will have someone that has a sort of macho, exaggerated idea of what a man is, and they might say that if someone's not macho, then they're not a man. Whereas if I have some of the good traits related to masculinity, that I'll immediately be called macho, even though none of what I'm doing or saying is necessarily excessive.
Okay, yeah, that's fair.
I think that maybe the one thing we can both agree on is that we know that beneficial traits are beneficial.
Yeah.
But also at the same time, we should allow people to be themselves.
Yes. And I think that that's kind of,
as long as being yourself is not a detriment to you.
Yeah, and I think that that's kind of one of the cruxes of this idea to me, is that it's not inherent to masculinity itself, but there is this problem where embracing of the masculine seems to also include rejection of the feminine to a lot of people's minds.
And embracing of the feminine awesome. I just can't. Tongue twister, the word feminine, say it 5 times fast, sorry. And and embracing of the feminine often means rejecting of the masculine.
Exactly, yeah. And I think that a lot of times, well, exactly, yeah. And I think a lot of times for young men and young women, they have trouble being themselves, like you were just saying, because maybe something they want to do or a way they act or something doesn't align with that or the prescripted category. You know what I mean? Like, you know, think of how many movies, like, did you ever see the movie Billy Elliot? It had the young guy who's now plays Spider-Man,
a long time ago. Yeah, I barely remember that.
But it's like, you know, like a kid who, you know, he wants to dance and you're ridiculed for that because that's not considered a quote unquote masculine thing to do. You know, just like that. I mean, that's a silly example of it, but I feel like that kind of stuff happens a lot where you may be interested in something, an activity, or, you know, you've got some sort of interest that you are made to feel like you're either not supposed to, or that that's not for you, just simply because of your gender, basically.
Right. But we're getting somewhere, because there's plenty of nurses that are male, and there's plenty of, well, actually, now that I think about it, I don't know very many construction workers that are female.
Yeah. Yeah.
Basically, there's plenty of women that are working in the workplace, which is a relatively new thing.
Yeah. Well, exactly. Like
That's progress.
Yeah. It is definitely progress. There's no way to argue against that. And it's just, yeah, I mean, I think we kind of agreed on the biggest point, I think, is that possibly masculinity needs to be redefined, and that a lot of what is brought to mind to some people when they hear that term is just bullshit. And it's unfortunate that it falls into that same category as these positive traits, but it does kind of bring some baggage that is negative.
Right. And now that I'm thinking about it,
Mhm.
a lot of the traits that people think of as being negative are neither associated with masculinity or femininity.
Well, yeah,
except for
definitely.
the bullshit ones, like the idea that all women are weak, horse shit. The idea that men aren't allowed to show their feelings at all, horse shit. I think we agree on that too.
Yeah.
But any of the traits that are universally beneficial to both, they're not necessarily associated with either in many cases. So it's the idea that we shouldn't reject either thing, really. We should embrace it regardless of who we are. What do you think?
Well, I think that's what we're going to get into next time, I guess. We need to find a stopping point sometime here where, I mean, I do think, of course, embracing the positive traits is a good thing. I mean, like, I feel like it's almost silly to say that, because it's like, yeah, of course you want to embrace the positive traits. But I don't know. I need to do more thinking and reevaluate, I guess. Is my position against it really just semantic? Do I have a problem that there's this line drawn between male and female and masculine and feminine, whenever I think a lot of these traits are just beneficial to either? And then really try to look at, is there harm done or damage when a man is exhibiting these traits that are considered feminine, or when a woman is exhibiting these traits that are considered masculine? Is that...
Wait, are you addressing that as an argument that I was making? Because none of those were my point.
No. I'm just saying, like, something that I'm hoping to get into next time, I guess.
Okay, yeah. So, sorry. So in regard to that, okay, yeah, I see. And also, I think we agree that if we're going to use the word masculinity, which it's probably not going to go away, we're probably not going to stop using either of those words anytime soon. Yeah. That it needs to be redefined. So perhaps we can have a discussion on how it should be defined if we're to redefine it.
Good.
And okay, that works, right?
Yeah. No, I'm very down with that. Yeah.
And are we still planning on having guests?
I would love to, yeah. I'm still, I try to do a little bit of reaching out through Facebook. I found a couple people that were interested, but I don't know if anyone has the proper equipment, which is something I need to more talk to them about.
What are you being sexist?
Oh no, I mean, like, the actual.
I was making a joke. Come on, that was a good pun. That was so punny. I love myself. Just kidding. If anything else, it's probably the other thing. Yeah. So the right equipment in order to be able to communicate using the medium that we use.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So at this point, I have one possible female guest who has agreed to be on, who may or may not end up being our actual guest. It's just someone that agreed that if we would like them to be on, that they would do that. And so we're trying to find a male guest, I guess, to discuss the same thing. Yeah. And I actually suggested that we have both of those guests on at the same time at some point. I don't know if you think that's a good idea or not. I mean, I'll make it up to you. I'm just the
Yeah.
I'm the co-host.
I put it on an equal playing field. Yeah.
And then after all that, like, I suppose we can have the conversation pertaining to the subjects that we just determined we should probably talk about.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Sure. Well, let me see here. I mean, that does bring us to a stopping point tonight, which I love the discussion we've had so far, and I'm excited to pick it up and explore it a little further. I hope you had a good time, right? Did you?
I mean, yeah, but I mean, the nature of the discussion is that, it's just it's basically like idea cage fighting. You put two ideas in a cage and just like, go get them, ideas. And it's like, yeah, it's those poor ideas. I hate that they got beat up so much.
Gotcha. Yeah. No, that makes sense. That makes sense. But yeah, and that's like I feel very ill-equipped in a lot of ways. I don't know if my ideas were fleshed out enough to really be articulated in a way that they should. So I feel like I'm kind of doing my side like in a disservice, really. But
I've been thinking about this shit for the last probably 3 to 4 years.
Yeah. See, yeah, you've got such a head start on me. See, it's not something that occurs to me much at all. So it's not something that I've done a lot of thinking on. So yeah, I need to change that.
A lot of the importance to this for me, just to put some perspective on it, is that I had a crisis in which I decided to begin to adopt some traits that were thought of as being masculine, without adopting the ones that are harmful. And my life actually got much better after I did that. So that's the major reason why I think that people are probably pretty similar. So other individuals might benefit also.
Yeah, and I think that's why it really means something to you too, is because you've found these ideas to be personally beneficial in a pretty strong way. So it's got an emotional resonance to you, I think. Well, yeah. So yeah. But yeah, like I don't know. I'm enjoying the talk so far. I hate to like kind of pause it like unnaturally, but I do think that we did start out from the beginning planning to have a part 1 and part 2. So it's not just like it's not just like me like saying, oh well, I gotta go, let's cut it off here. But yeah, I'm excited to reconvene for part 2. I mean, as always, I've really enjoyed talking with you. I want to give you the last word. Yeah, you get the. I mean, before I do like the end thing, do you have any like closing thoughts that you want to wrap it up with?
Yeah. Don't let people tell you who to be.
Good. Yeah, I think that's really good advice. Oh yeah. So we have reached the end of yet another episode of the Metacast podcast. If you guys are watching this on YouTube and you've enjoyed the conversation, hit the like button. Be sure to subscribe to keep up to date with what we're doing here, and comment below and let us know who do you think so far has made the stronger case. Do you believe that masculinity still has value, or is it kind of becoming an outdated idea? I want to hear your guys' opinions. If you're interested in taking further part in the conversation or possibly joining us as a guest on a future episode, join our Discord. The link is in the description below. Don't forget to join us next week for another episode live, Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on twitch.tv/TylaTV. And thank you all for watching. Have a great week.